The war ended without a sound. Across the broken edge of the galaxy, alien fleets waited for the final signal. Their weapons were still hot. Their shields were still raised. Their commanders stood ready for orders that never came. Human ships filled the dark like quiet shadows, thousands of them, perfectly positioned, perfectly capable of ending everything with one command. But the command did not come at first. The aliens thought it was a delay. Human systems were complex. Human decisions were slow, they believed. So they waited. Minutes passed, then hours. Sensors showed something impossible. Human weapons powered down. Energy signatures dropped. Long-range cannons cooled. Entire fleets shifted into idle formation, as if the war had never happened. Confusion spread through the alien command networks. Victory had been absolute. Every enemy stronghold was destroyed. Every hostile fleet had surrendered or fled. There was no resistance left to crush. The galaxy itself seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for humans to claim what they had earned. But humans did nothing. In one shattered command chamber, an alien admiral stared at the silent star map. Human symbols were everywhere. They controlled every major route, every strategic system. Nothing could challenge them now. "This is the moment," the admiral said, his voice tight. "Why are they not speaking?" No one answered. Alien prediction models had run this moment millions of times. Every version ended the same way. Rule, control, a new order enforced by the strongest species to ever rise. This silence was not in the models. Human communications remained closed. No victory message. No declaration of authority. No demand for surrender. Even basic status pings went unanswered. To the aliens, this was worse than war. Silence meant uncertainty, and uncertainty meant danger. Far from the alien fleets, inside a human command vessel, the atmosphere was different. There was no cheering, no raised voices, no celebration lights. Only quiet movement and calm faces. Human officers stood at their stations, reading reports they already understood. The war was over. The outcome was clear. The galaxy lay open before them, and still. No one gave the final order. The fleet commander, an older human with tired eyes, looked at the main display. It showed a simple message waiting to be sent. Victory confirmed. Authority. Ready for transfer. He did not touch it. He had seen this moment before. Not here, not in space, but in history books. In old images of ruined cities and fallen flags. In stories humans never stopped telling themselves. He turned away from the screen. "Hold position," he said quietly. The order echoed across the fleet. Not an advance. Not a retreat. Just stillness. Back in alien space, panic began to rise. A coalition of alien leaders opened an emergency channel. They spoke over one another, voices sharp with fear. "They have one said. "Why do they not claim it?" "Perhaps it is a trick," another suggested. "Perhaps they wait to strike," but the data did not support that. Human systems were not preparing for attack. They were shutting down. One alien analyst, younger and less certain, spoke softly. "What if they are afraid?" The chamber fell silent. "Afraid of what?" the admiral demanded. "They are unstoppable," the analyst hesitated. "Afraid of what comes after?" No one liked that answer. Alien cultures were built on purpose. Victory led to rule. Rule led to stability. Stability was survival. It had always been that way. Humans had broken the pattern. As the hours stretched on, alien worlds began to react. Some celebrated early, believing human rule would bring order. Others prepared defenses, fearing occupation. Trade networks froze. Civilian traffic stopped moving. The galaxy was waiting for a ruler. Humans refused to appear. Deep inside human space, old recordings played quietly in forgotten archives. Wars from centuries ago, speeches made with confidence, promises of peace made with force. Humans remembered. How those stories ended, they remembered that power never felt dangerous when it arrived. It felt earned, necessary, temporary. until it wasn't. The fleet commander finally spoke again. Not to the galaxy, but to his own people. "We've reached the line," he said. "Past this, we change." No one argued. They all knew what he meant. The silence continued. Alien historians would later mark this moment as the most frightening event in recorded time. Not the war, not the destruction, but the pause. A species that could rule everything chose to wait. From the outside, it looked like hesitation. From the inside, it was a decision forming. The galaxy leaned forward, expecting an empire instead. It was about to witness something it had no words for. Humans had won, and for the first time in galactic history, victory did not move forward. Before the silence, before the waiting, the galaxy had already decided how this story would end. Every major power had seen the signs. Humans were winning not by chance, not by numbers, but by change. They learned faster than any species ever recorded. When an enemy adapted, humans adapted again. When plans failed, humans rewrote them instead of defending them. Alien commanders studied battle footage with growing fear. Humans did not fight to prove strength. They fought to remove options. They cut supply lines instead of cities. They ended command chains instead of chasing glory. Where others sought honor, humans sought conclusions. That was how the war tipped. At first, the alien empires dismissed humanity as temporary. Humans argued among themselves. They questioned orders. They changed leaders too often. No stable species could survive like that. They were wrong. Human weakness turned out to be flexibility. Their doubts became tools. Their disagreements created better answers. One by one, alien fleets fell back. Some surrendered. Others joined the human side, believing resistance was pointless. Entire systems switched loyalty not because they loved humans, but because humans were clearly going to win. Soon the galaxy faced a reality it had never faced before. Total power was possible. For the first time in history, one species controlled every critical point, the fastest travel routes, the strongest fleets, the final battlefield intelligence networks. Even the ancient automated defense systems built long before humans existed had been shut down or rewritten by human engineers. Not through brute force, but through patience. Humans were willing to wait days, weeks, even years for a single weakness. Alien leaders gathered in secret councils, watching the maps shrink. "We must prepare the transition," one elder said. "Better human rule than chaos," no one argued. Chaos terrified them more than submission. The idea of a human-led galaxy spread quickly. Some aliens feared it. Others welcomed it. Many prepared gifts, titles, and seats of honor. They believed humans would want recognition for their victory. They believed humans would want control. The Galactic Council was reformed even before the war fully ended. New chambers were built. Human symbols were placed beside ancient emblems. Laws were rewritten to allow permanent leadership just in case. It was all very careful, very logical. Absolute power was being made ready. From the alien point of view, it made sense. Every strong species ruled when it could. It was not cruelty. It was order. Power filled the empty space before conflict could. History supported this belief. Every empire that survived had ruled hard and early. Every species that hesitated had been erased. Humans knew this history too. They had lived it. That was what worried them. Inside human command centers, reports flowed in. Not warnings, invitations. Messages arrived from former enemies, now polite and respectful. "We accept human oversight. We request human protection. We ask for human judgment." The requests were endless. Human analysts mapped the future. If they accepted, the galaxy would stabilize quickly. No more large wars. No more unknown threats. Humanity would become the center of everything. It would be easy. That thought alone made many humans uncomfortable. Absolute power did not arrive as a threat. It arrived as an offer. A quiet one. In one briefing room, a group of human planners studied a projection. It showed a peaceful galaxy under unified control. Crime down. Conflict rare. Trade efficient. A younger officer broke the silence. "It looks good," he said. No one answered him. An older planner finally spoke. "So did the last 5 times we tried this on one planet." They all knew what he meant. Human history was full of moments that began with order and ended with regret. The difference now was scale. This was not a world, not even a system. This was everything. Alien observers watched humans closely during this time. They noticed strange behavior. Human leaders delayed meetings. Committees expanded instead of shrinking. Decisions slowed when they should have sped up. To alien minds, this was weakness. To humans, it was cautioned. The Galactic Council sent its formal signal. "The war is ending," the message said. "Authority awaits." It was respectful, almost grateful. Human command did not respond. Instead, they requested data. Old data. Records of past empires. Records of collapse. Records of what happened when power stayed too long in one place. Aliens found the request strange but complied. Humans studied those records late into the night. They saw the same pattern repeated across thousands of civilizations. Victory, rule, fear of losing control. More control, collapse, again and again. Absolute power always promised safety, and always demanded a price. When the final battles ended and the galaxy expected celebration, humans did not celebrate. They looked at what they now held. And for the first time, they asked a question no other species ever asked at this moment. Not, "What can we do now?" but "What will this turn us into?" The answer did not come quickly. But the silence from part 1 was no accident. It was the sound of a species standing at the edge of everything, realizing that the greatest danger was no longer the enemy. It was themselves. The Galactic Council met in full assembly for the first time in centuries. Its chamber was built for moments like this. The ceiling rose high above, covered in moving stars. The walls carried symbols of empires long gone. At the center stood the circle of authority, a place no single species had ever fully claimed. Now it waited for humans. Alien delegates filled the chamber. Some were calm. Some were afraid. Many were tired. The war had taken too much from all of them, and they wanted it to end cleanly. When the human delegation arrived, the room fell quiet. There were no banners, no guards in heavy armor, no signs of triumph. The humans walked in wearing simple uniforms, their faces calm, almost distant. They did not look like conquerors. That made many aliens uneasy. The council speaker rose. He was old, even by alien standards, his voice shaped by centuries of rule. "The war has ended," he said. "The galaxy stands because of you." The humans listened. They did not bow. They did not interrupt. For the first time, the speaker continued, "We face a future without chaos, a future without endless conflict. This is because humans achieved what no one else could." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We offer you stewardship of the galaxy." A quiet wave of agreement passed through the chamber. This was expected. This was correct. Power should go where strength proved itself. The speaker lifted a symbol made of light. It was the seal of authority, used only once before. "In a failed age, with this," he said, "humans will hold final command. Military, trade law. No empire may act against your judgment." Alien eyes turned to the humans. Some watched with hope, others with fear. Humans did not reach for the seal. Instead, the lead human delegate spoke. "Before we answer," she said calmly, "we have a question." The chamber shifted. Questions were not part of this moment. Acceptance was. The speaker nodded. "Ask." The human looked around the room. "If we accept this power," she said, "what happens when we make a mistake?" The question echoed strangely in the vast chamber. The speaker frowned. "You will correct it," he said. "That is the duty of leadership." The human delegate shook her head slightly. "No, I mean when the mistake cannot be corrected. When the decision is wrong, but the power remains. Silence followed. Alien leaders exchanged looks. This was not how they thought about power. Power existed to prevent mistakes. That was its purpose. One counselor answered instead, "Your systems are advanced. Your minds are flexible. You will adapt." The human nodded slowly. So did we. On our own world, a low murmur spread through the chamber. Another human stepped forward. "What if we decide something that benefits us, but harms others? Who stops us?" The speaker straightened. "You would not do that." The human did not argue. She only asked another question. "And if we do?" The chamber grew uncomfortable. Aliens were not used to leaders questioning themselves in public. Confidence was strength. Doubt was weakness. The speaker spoke again, more firmly. "Every ruler carries risk, but the alternative is chaos. You have seen what happens when no one leads." The humans exchanged brief looks. They had seen it too, but they had also seen something else. The lead delegate spoke again. Her voice was steady. "We accept that leadership brings order," she said. "But we also know it brings fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of being challenged. Fear of stepping back." She paused. "Our history is full of leaders who began with protection and ended with domination. Not because they were evil, because power changes how decisions feel." Some aliens shifted in their seats. This was uncomfortable truth, even for them. The speaker raised the seal higher. "Humans," he said, "this galaxy needs you. Without your command, the old conflicts will return. The strong will prey on the weak." The human replied softly, "And with our command, what happens when we decide who is strong?" That question had no answer. Alien logic models failed in that moment. They were built on the idea that strength must rule. That rule was the solution. Humans were questioning the solution itself. The speaker lowered the seal slightly. "What are you saying?" he asked. The human took a breath. "We are saying that absolute power is not a reward," she said. "It is a test." The chamber reacted at once. Voices rose. Some angry. Some confused. "You earned this." One alien shouted. "Yes," the human agreed. "That is why we are careful." The speaker tried one last time. "If you refuse," he said, "you risk everything you fought for." The humans did not look afraid. "We know," the delegate said. "We have been there before." She looked at the seal one last time. "Give us time," she said. "If we take this, it must be because it is right, not because it is available." The humans turned and walked away from the circle of authority. Behind them, the Galactic Council sat frozen. No species had ever delayed acceptance of absolute power. No species had ever asked permission to think, as the humans left the chamber. Alien leaders felt something unfamiliar. It was not anger, it was fear. Because for the first time, the strongest species in the galaxy was acting in a way that could not be controlled, predicted, or understood, and that made their silence far more dangerous than any command. The throne remained empty, and the galaxy waited. After the council meeting, the humans did not return to their ships at once. They gathered in quiet rooms and empty halls built for decisions, not celebration. The galaxy waited for their answer. But humans waited for something else. They waited for memory. Human leaders opened old records. Not alien records. Human ones. Files that were never erased, only hidden. Wars from centuries past. Governments that promised safety. Leaders who swore they would step down later had rarely come. One human historian spoke to the group. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. "Power does not arrive as a monster," he said. "It arrives as help." He showed them images. A city rebuilt after war. A leader praised for ending chaos. A law passed to protect people. Then more images followed. More laws. More control. Fewer choices. Every time, he continued, it started with good reasons. Humans had learned this lesson the hard way. On their homeworld, power had always grown quietly. It never announced itself as permanent. It called itself necessary. Another human spoke. A former commander who had once ruled a small region during a crisis. I remember the moment I stopped listening. She said, not because I was cruel, because I believed I was right. No one interrupted her. That's when it begins, she said. When you stop asking if you should, the room stayed silent. Outside, alien observers watched human behavior with confusion. They expected meetings about borders, control systems, and new laws. Instead, humans studied old failures. They spoke of limits. They argued about how to prevent themselves from becoming something they feared. Aliens did not understand this fear to them. A power was simple. It was the tool that stopped threats. The more power, the less danger. That logic had worked for thousands of years. Humans had lived long enough to know it was incomplete. One human analyst presented a projection. It showed the future under human rule, peace, stability, controlled conflict. The numbers were impressive. Then she changed the projection. She added time, decades passed. Then centuries, slowly, the model changed. Human systems became rigid. Decision-making slowed. Small rebellions appeared. Control increased in response. Surveillance grew. Freedom shrank. The final image was quiet and dark. This is not a prediction, the analyst said. It's a pattern. Humans recognized the shape of it. They had seen it before, different names and flags. Another human asked the hardest question. If we don't take control, he said, how many will suffer? No one answered right away. This was the weight of restraint. It was easier to act, easier to rule, easier to force order. Choosing not to act meant accepting risk. Humans knew this too. That was why the decision was not simple. They remembered moments when they had stepped back before, when power had been handed to them and they had refused. Those moments were rare, but they mattered. They were the reason human history still moved forward instead of collapsing inward. Human philosopher spoke softly. We are not afraid of strength, she said. We are afraid of forgetting why we wanted it. Her words settled over the group. Aliens believed humans were confident because they were strong. The truth was different. Humans were cautious because they remembered weakness. They remembered losing control of weapons they built to protect. They remembered systems that could not be stopped once they started. They remembered how easy it was to believe that the end justified the means. Power did not corrupt. Humans faster than others. It stayed longer. That made it more dangerous. Outside the human meetings, the galaxy grew restless. Small conflicts flared. Old rivalries tested boundaries. Alien leaders sent urgent messages. You must decide, they said. Without your rule, order will fail. Humans listened. They did not deny the risk, but they also saw another risk. A future where no one could question them. A future where their decisions could not be refused. That future frightened them more than chaos. One human commander summed it up in a simple sentence. If we take this power, he said, we will never be able to give it back. That was the line no one could cross. The memory of power was not just history. It was instinct, passed down through stories, laws, and warnings. Humans taught their children not only how to lead, but when to stop leading. This was that moment. They returned to the council chamber not as conquerors, but as witnesses to their own past. Alien leaders watched them enter again. They expected hesitation. They expected negotiation. What they saw was resolve, not the resolve to rule, the resolve to refuse. The lead human delegate spoke one final time before the decision was announced. We remember what power does, she said, and we remember what it costs. As aliens did not understand how memory could be stronger than ambition, but humans did, and that memory was about to shape the future of the entire galaxy, because the species that feared its own victory had finally remembered why. Asterisk. The decision did not arrive with thunder or ceremony. It arrived as a message sent at the same time to every major system in the galaxy. It was short, clear, human. We will not rule. At first, no one believed it. Alien leaders read the message again and again, searching for hidden meaning. Some assumed it was a delay tactic. Others believed it was a mistake. A few thought it was a threat dressed as humility. But the follow-up actions made the truth possible to deny. Human fleets began to move not forward, but apart. War formations broke. Command chains dissolved. Ships returned to neutral positions along shared borders. Weapon platforms powered down and were dismantled in full view of alien observers. Humans were not preparing to rule. They were stepping away. Panic followed on dozens of worlds. Emergency councils formed. Trade routes froze again. Defense systems went on alert, not against humans, but against the sudden absence of control. An alien minister spoke in fear during a broadcast. If humans withdraw, who will stop the next war? No one had an answer. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The chamber filled with raised voices and broken logic. "This is reckless," one delegate shouted. "They earned authority. Refusing it is irresponsible." Another argued, "They are abandoning us." The speaker, older and quieter now, watched the chaos. He remembered the human questions. He had no answers then. He still did not. When the humans entered the chamber again, the room fell silent. The lead delegate stood alone this time. No escort, no symbols. "We have made our decision," she said, "and we will explain it." She did not raise her voice. "We will not accept permanent authority. We will not control your laws, your fleets, or your future." Anger rose from the seats. "You risk collapse?" one alien cried. "Yes," the human replied. "So do you, if we stay." That stunned them, she continued. "Power feels safe when it works. It feels necessary when it succeeds. But when power cannot be questioned, it becomes dangerous even, with good intentions." An alien commander stood. "You saved us," he said. "Why leave now?" The human looked at him. "Because saving you once does not give us the right to decide everything forever." The chamber went quiet. Then came the final act. Humans released the control keys. Not symbolic ones. Real ones, keys that commanded ancient defense networks. Keys that could shut down entire systems. Keys no other species had ever held at the same time. They destroyed them. Alien systems recorded the act. Engineers verified it. Observers confirmed the loss was permanent. A gasp moved through the chamber. "Why?" the speaker asked. The human answered with simple truth, "Because no one should be trusted with this." Outside the council, the galaxy reacted in waves. Some worlds celebrated human restraint. Others cursed it. A few tried to seize power in the vacuum that followed. Those attempts failed quickly, not because humans stopped them, but because no single force could dominate anymore. Balance returned slowly and unevenly. Human forces did not disappear. They remained present, but limited, defensive, bound by shared agreements instead of command. Humans offered support, not control. Aid, not orders. Protection, but only when asked, to alien minds. This was weak leadership. To history, it was something else. In the weeks that followed, small wars began and ended. Trade shifted. Borders adjusted. The galaxy struggled. But it did not collapse. Alien historians began recording the moment. They did not title it the rise of humanity. They called it the refusal. One historian wrote, "They could have ruled by right of victory. Instead, they chose risk." Some alien leaders still blamed humans for future conflicts. Others quietly admitted a hard truth. Human rule might have ended wars. It also might have ended choice in human space. There were no celebrations, no monuments to the decision, only quiet acknowledgement. One young human officer asked his commander if they had done the right thing. The commander looked at the stars for a long time before answering. "I don't know," he said, "and that's why we did it." Galaxy learned something important that day. Humans were not the strongest species because they could win wars. They were dangerous because they could stop themselves after winning. Power did not frighten them. What frightened them was the thought of never letting it go. And so the galaxy moved forward without a ruler, uneven, uncertain, but free from absolute power, the species that feared its own victory had made its choice, and the universe would spend generations trying to understand it. The galaxy did not become peaceful after humans stepped back. Anyone who expected that was wrong. Without a single power at the center, old tensions returned. Border disputes flared. Trade arguments became threats. Some species tested their neighbors, hoping to gain what humans had refused. For a time, it looked like the critics had been right. This is what happens without control, alien leaders said. Humans left us to chaos, but chaos did not spread the way it always had before. Something was different. When conflicts began, they stayed small. No empire could grow too strong, too fast. No fleet could move freely across the galaxy without resistance. Every power had limits now, and everyone knew it. The galaxy had lost a ruler, but it had gained balance. Humans watched from a distance. They did not police every fight. They did not step in first. They waited, studied, and remembered their rules. When a war threatened to grow beyond control, humans acted not as leaders, but as breakers of momentum. They disrupted supply lines. They opened evacuation routes. They forced talks without choosing sides. Then they stepped back again. Alien commanders found this behavior confusing. "You have the strength to end this completely," one demanded during a crisis. "Why do you stop halfway?" The human reply was always the same: because halfway is enough. This frustrated many. It also saved millions of lives. Over time, something unexpected happened. Alien species began copying human restraint. Not fully, not perfectly, but they began to hesitate before pushing too far. They remembered the moment humans walked away from absolute power and wondered what humans had seen that they had not. In military academies, new lessons appeared. Victory is not the end of responsibility, instructors said. That idea was radical. For centuries, victory had been the goal. Responsibility ended when the enemy fell. Humans had reversed that logic. Alien historians struggled to explain it. One wrote, "Humans behave as if power has weight, as if holding too much of it bends the future." Some dismissed this as fear. Others called it wisdom. Years passed. The galaxy did not unite under one flag. It remained divided, messy, and imperfect. But it did not collapse. Trade grew slowly. Alliances formed and broke. Wars still happened, but they ended sooner, because no one could dominate long enough to erase everyone else. Humans remained present, but distant. They were invited to councils, but refused permanent seats. They were asked to lead, but chose to advise. They were feared, but no longer worshipped. This unsettled many alien leaders. Power was easier when someone else carried it, one alien governor said openly. Humans could end all this suffering if they chose to rule. A human diplomat answered calmly. Or we could cause more than we prevent. The governor had no reply. Inside human society, the decision was not without cost. Some humans believed they had given up too much. They saw worlds burning and wondered if stronger action would have saved them. They questioned restraint. Human leaders allowed those questions. They did not silence doubt. They accepted it as part of the price. "We chose risk," one leader said. "That means living with uncertainty." Humans did not claim moral superiority. They did not say their choice was perfect. They only said it was necessary. Alien observers began to notice another change. Human culture did not grow arrogant after victory. It grew quiet, focused inward. Humans invested in limits laws designed to reduce their own reach, systems that prevented long-term control, structures that forced leadership to rotate and weaken over time. To aliens, this looked like self-harm to humans. It was safety. They understood something most species never learned. The greatest threat was not an enemy outside. It was becoming unstoppable in one distant system. An alien empire attempted to rise again. They expanded quickly using old methods: conquest, fear, control. For a while, it worked. Then the galaxy reacted. Neighbors united. Trade closed. Resistance spread. The empire collapsed under its own weight. Humans did not lead that resistance. They simply refused to support the empire. Alien analysts noted this carefully, without humans backing them. No empire could grow unchecked. Humans had become a silent limit. Not rulers, not gods, eh? Boundary One historian described it best. Humans removed themselves from the throne, but they did not leave the room as the galaxy adjusted. Slowly, painfully, but it adjusted. Children grew up learning a new story. Not of the strongest empire, but of the strongest refusal. Not of conquest, but of restraint. The story of the species that could have ruled everything, and chose not to. Many aliens still did not understand the choice, but they respected the result because, for the first time in recorded history, absolute power existed and was deliberately destroyed, and the galaxy survived it. Humans had walked away from victory, and in doing so, they had changed the meaning of winning forever. Generations passed. The war that once decided the fate of the galaxy became a chapter in history rather than a living memory. New stars were mapped. Old borders faded. Empires rose and fell in smaller, quieter ways. But one event never faded: the moment humans walked away from absolute power. Alien children learned about it in their early studies. At first, the lesson made no sense to them. Victory was supposed to lead to rule. Strength was meant to command obedience. That was how the galaxy had always worked. Humans had broken that rule. In alien academies, instructors paused longer when they reached that part of history. They warned their students not to rush past it. This was not weakness, they said. This was restraint, many students argued. Some laughed. Others dismissed it as a strange human mistake. But as those students grew older, they began to understand. Records show that every empire before humans collapsed under the weight of its own control. Even the greatest rulers became prisoners of their power. They could never step back. They could never admit error. The system would not allow it. Humans had avoided that. Trapped by refusing to enter it, human society changed as well. They did not become legends or gods. They did not demand tribute or praise. Instead, they became quiet participants in the galaxy traders, advisors, builders, and sometimes defenders. When asked why they did not claim their place at the top, humans gave the same answer: we have been there before. Human children were taught the story early, not as a victory tale, but as a warning. They learned that power is easy to take and hard to release. They learned that winning is not the same as being right. They learned that restraint must be practiced, not admired, on human worlds. No statue of the victory stood taller than the laws that limited it. Alien leaders continued to study humans. They noticed something strange. Humans did not seek dominance, but they were never ignored. When humans spoke, others listened. Not because humans forced them to, but because humans had proven they could stop themselves. Trust followed restraint. In times of crisis, aliens still turned to humans, not to rule, but to stabilize. Humans did not command fleets. They helped organize talks. They opened paths for escape. They shut down systems that threatened everyone, then handed control back. Every time. They stepped away again. This behavior reshaped galactic politics. Power was no longer measured only by how much control one held, but by how much control one could refuse. A new phrase entered common use: human limits. It described systems designed with exits, authorities built to expire, power that could be challenged without collapse. Many alien societies tried to adopt these ideas. Some failed, some succeeded. All were changed. One alien philosopher wrote, "Humans taught us that survival is not about winning everything. It is about leaving room for the future." That idea spread faster than any fleet ever had. Even former enemies of humanity began to teach the story with respect. They remembered the fear they felt during the silence after victory. They understood now that fear had not come from human power, but from human restraint. Because restraint cannot be predicted. In the final historical record, the war was not remembered for its battles. It was remembered for its ending. The moment when the strongest species in the galaxy stopped, looked at what it had become, and chose not to cross the final line. The throne remained empty, not because no one wanted it, but because humans had shown what happens when someone takes a stand, never lets go. The galaxy never found another ruler like that, and it never tried. To tow in a quiet archive on a distant world, an alien historian recorded the final summary of the age. Humans were not the most powerful species, he wrote. They were the most self-aware. He closed the record with a simple sentence. They feared victory because they understood its cost. Long after the humans who made the choice were gone, their decisions still shaped the stars. Not through command, not through force, but through absence. The absence of absolute power. And in that absence, the galaxy learned to breathe. The species that feared its own victory did not rule history. They freed it.